A lot of success.
I was blown away. I was really very excited coming in here and watching all the people learn. It was such a wonderful spirit, such a wonderful energy. And I'm really excited. I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu was really excited as well. I was so impressed with how each one connected with the other. Everyone was so interested in learning. There's so much Shem Shemayim. Whatever I've seen in the past, this is something that just outdoes everything. More and more Siyata Shemaya to bring everyone back into the fold, that everyone should come to their full potential.
It's exceedingly upsetting that we're observing yet another Tisha B'Av. I was so prayerful, I was so hopeful last year that it would be the last Tisha B'Av and that today would be a Yontif. But alas, here we are observing yet another Tisha B'Av, and truthfully, it's a condemnation and it's an indictment against us. Because the same disunity and the same fragmentation and divisiveness that plagued us last year and for hundreds and thousands of years previous, plagued us this year. It's enough. Enough. We need Tisha B'Av to be a Yontif. How's it going to happen? The Torah says about the Rebbeinu Shalom, about God. It describes him as Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, the majestic, the grand, the awesome, mighty God. How is he so mighty, majestic, grand, and awesome? The Torah clarifies. The Torah explicates. The Torah explains precisely what it means. It says, because God cares about the dejected, the lonely. God cares about those who others don't care about, the orphan, the widow. And he loves the convert, the stranger, and he clothes him. That means that God's greatness is in taking care of none other than the disenfranchised, the estranged, those who no one else cares about. Those that are different. Those that are removed. Those that are isolated. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara Megillah, Daf Lamed Aleph tells us, Rabbi Yochanan said, wherever you find God's grandeur and majesty and might and awesomeness, Sham atamodse anivusanusai. That's where you find God's lowliness. That's where you find God's humility. You want to know where to find God's greatness? It's in the lowliness and humility. Says the holy Rimanover, Rav Menachem Mendel Rimanov. What does it mean, kol makom? What does it mean, the place that you find this greatness, this convergence, that you find this lowliness? He says, Gedulaso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the grandeur, the greatness of God means that you take God's name, the Shem Havaya, Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Tetragrammaton, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, and you exemplify, you square it. Each of the letters, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav Hey. If you square the Yud, it's 100. If you square the Hey, it's 25. If you square the Vav, it's 36. And again, if you square the Hey, it's 25. You add that up, it's 186. The precise gematria of Hamakom. God's place. But says Rimanover, something so beautiful. Listen clearly. He says, you want to find where God truly is? Where God's greatness really lies? Anivasunusai. His lowliness, his humility, his ability to be there for everyone. No matter what they look like. No matter how they behave. And that's why he says that if you look in the Torah Kedosha, and the Zohar says this, and it's brought down the Minchas Shai, as well as the Pnei Raza, there are 7 times in the Chamisha Torah, in the 5 books of the Torah, that you have minuscule, miniature letters. There are 3 occurrences, there are 3 incidences of this in Sefer Bereshis. There are 2 in Vayikra, there's 1 in Bamidbar and 1 in Devarim. The 3 in Bereshis are Bihi Baram, the hay, V'lev kaisa the chaf, katzti b'chayai the kuf. And then you have, in Vayikra, you have the small aleph of Vayikra. You have the small mem of Mokdah. You have in Bamidbar the little yud of Pinchas. And you have in Devarim the small, minuscule, tiny letter of Teshi, the yud. Says the Rimanover, if you add these all up, if you take the hey, take the chaf, take the kuf, take the aleph, take the mem, take the yud, and take the yud, it adds up to 186, the makom, the shem avaya. Because God's grandeur, His majesty, His awesomeness, His might, His greatness lies in the small, in the puny, in the little, in the dejected, in those that have no one else. What does that mean? That means us, B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, the Jewish people, God's children. And we're supposed to imitate God. We're supposed to replicate His ways. That means that if you take care of others, if you reach out to others who haven't been ignited yet, who have been written off and look like they're assimilating, or if you reach out to others who need a chesed, who need a kindness, who need to be uplifted, who need strength, then you are like Hashem. But we're too judgmental. We're too pretentious. We're know-it-alls. We're holier than thou. We dominate in shuls where we have our cliques. We hang out with the people who socioeconomically are the ones that pass appropriate for us. That's not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants achdus, unity. Hashem wants peace. Hashem wants us to stop discriminating and to start understanding that we're brethren, we're brothers and sisters. You know what the Torah says about Moshe Rabbeinu's sons? He had two sons, Gershom and Eliezer. It says, Shem ha'echad Gershom. His first son was Gershom. So what should the Torah say? The Torah should say, V'shem ha'sheni Eliezer, and the second one's name was Eliezer. It doesn't say that. It seems to be a discrepancy. Because it says, V'shem ha'echad Eliezer. It says he had one son, Gershom, V'shem ha'echad, and the second son, it says, and he had another single son, V'shem ha'echad Eliezer. Why does it say V'shem ha'echad Eliezer? It should say V'shem ha'sheni Eliezer. And the second son, it says he had one son, and he had one son. The great Rabbi Shamshon Samson Raphael Hirsch says that if you contrast this and contradistinction to the animals, to the Korban Tamar, where it speaks about the keves, the shepsel of the sheep, it says, as a keves hasheni, the second animal. Because when it comes to children, when it comes to a Jew, when it comes to your brother, he's not a statistic. He's not the second or the third or the fourth. When it comes to your child, you have many children. Each child is precious. Each Jew, each brother is unique and distinct and privileged. And each encounter with another Jew should be as if your first and last encounter with that person. That person is so extraordinary. That person is so special. They are the echad. They are the one and only. I'll share with you a story that happened. There was a fellow, a chassid, that went to his Rebbe, the Sar Shalom of Belz. And he said to the Belzer, to the holy Belzer Rebbe, he said, I would like to have Gilui Eliyahu Navi. I'd like to have the revelation of Elijah, the prophet of Eliyahu. He felt that he was on that caliber. He felt that he was holy and that he had rectified himself and engaged in a lot of self-perfection. And the Rebbe said to him, for 40 days, I want you to engage in certain special practices. You should fast, go to mikvah, and learn in the Beis Medrash every single night, throughout the entire night. Deprive yourself of the sleep, learn. And then, after this regimen, after this special prescription, you will encounter none other than Eliyahu HaNavi. And the chassid, very devoutly, he did it for 40 days. He followed the exact regimen and prescription to the T. And he was learning every single night, so piously, with such consummate devotion. And then, it was last night, the last night, and he was so anxious. He was going to greet Holier Navi, but there was a knock on the door of the Xperience, and he was interrupted. He didn't want to be interrupted. He wanted to encounter. He wanted to have the revelation of Eliyahu. Who was disturbing him? Who was the stranger? And the person persistently knocked and was aggravating him. Finally, he goes to the door and he sees a slovenly looking person. And the person said, please, will you talk to me? Will you learn with me? And he looked at the person looked miserable. And he said to the person, I'm sorry. I can't. Please leave me. I'm engaged in something so important, so critical. Let me be. Leave me alone. And the man left, upset and disappointed. The next morning, the chassid went to his Rebbe. And he said, Rebbe, I don't understand. I followed your instructions. Precisely. What happened? Where was Eliyahu? And the Rebbe said, you saw Eliyahu. He came to you in the middle of the night. He knocked on the door. You threw him out. Shem ha'echad Gershom v'shem ha'echad Eliezer. Every person you encounter may be Eliyahu. It may be your redemption. Every person that you engage and encounter, treat with dignity and respect. Treat with avas Yisrael, with love. Because you don't know. The Brisker Rav Velvel, asks, why is it that immediately after the Torah is given, which portion do we read? We read the portion about the Eved Ivri, about the man who stole and has to be rehabilitated. He's sold into slavery. Asks the Brisker Rav, couldn't the Torah give you something more palatable? Couldn't it give you something more noble? After all, you're so exalted. And this is what we have to read about. Says the Brisker Rav, precisely yes. The Torah's message is that every Jew counts. No matter what condition he's in now. No matter how he has lapsed and slipped and fallen. It doesn't make a difference. The message of the Torah, immediately after it's given, is that don't become too sanctimonious. Don't become so holier than thou that you think that you have an advantage over someone else. No. There's an Eved Ivri. Every Jew must be salvaged. Every Jew should have the attention, the love, and the patience. I'll share with you some stories that Rav Biderman Shlita shares. Fascinating stories. There was once a Melamed, a teacher of Jewish children. And this teacher of Jewish children was very punctual. He was so fastidious and meticulous in arriving to yeshiva, to the cheder on time. He was never late. Never late. One day, something went awry. And his order got out of whack, his schedule, and he realized that he was going to arrive late to cheder. And he tried his hardest not to arrive late. And he really tried to expedite things. And he even called a taxi and he spent extra money to get him on time to the cheder. When he finally arrived, he was almost hyperventilating. He couldn't catch his breath. He rushed so much. And he sits there, and the children are looking at him, and one child goes ahead and sticks out a watch that was on a wristband, that was on his arm, and is pointing it and showing it to the Malami, to the Rebbe, to the teacher. And the Rebbe looked, and the Rebbe was infuriated. He couldn't understand. The chutzpah, the audacity. How could this boy do that? I rushed my kishkas. What I did to get here, and I got here within 5 minutes, and that kid has the gall to try to give me musar and just show me a watch. He was going to harangue this kid. He was so infuriated and irate, mad. But he had a Kabbalah, had a tradition that if something upset him, he always allowed a half an hour to pass before he reacted, to quell and to mollify the emotion, which he did. At recess time, the teacher had already forgotten the incident, but the little boy with the watch came over to his teacher, and he said, Rebbe, I must show you something. This is a gift that I've been waiting for the longest time for my mother, and she finally was able to afford it. She finally gave it to me. I worked so hard to achieve this gift. Look, Rebbe, I wanted you to be the very first one to see that. My mother gave me a new watch, and as soon as you came in, I was trying to show you, but I think you were distracted. Rebbe, look what I got. And the teacher realized that the boy wasn't trying to chastise or rebuke him. He wasn't trying to put him in his place. The boy just wanted to show him a new gift. Could you imagine? Could you imagine what would have happened had the Rebbe lost himself and not shown patience and not understood that we have to dignify and cherish every person? Unfathomable, unbelievable. Rav Shalom Shwadron Zatzal, the famous Maggid, when he started off his career as a Maggid, he would lecture in the Zichron Moshe Shul in Yerushalayim. And he would start off his lecture with a Milsa de Biduchasa, with some humor, some jest, in order to captivate, in order to intrigue and enthrall the crowds that they should listen to the different Musar. There were several people in the audience, though, that were kanoim, that were zealots. And they felt that it was inappropriate. And it wasn't sukapas for a shadron to start off with a jest, with a joke, with humor. It diminished, they felt, from the sanctity, from the holiness of the shir. And therefore they went to him. And they felt that they should rebuke him, tell him that he shouldn't do it. Rav Shadron felt conflicted. He didn't know what to do. He traveled all the way to Bnei Brak to visit none other than the Chazon Ish, to consult with the Chazon Ish. He told the Chazon Ish his dilemma. He said he felt torn. After all, he was trying to entice everyone to listen by starting off, as the Gemara says, with a joke, with something a little humorous. And the Chazon Ish said, you must continue in that derech. I don't care what they say. I don't care if they lambast you. You're doing what's exactly appropriate. And said the Chazon Ish, he said in Lita, there was no shortage of great rabbis of Yerushalayim, of people that have fear of heaven, and Talmidei Chachamim, scholars. He said, and look what happened, look how many from the generation went ahead and went asunder, and became totally fry, left the religion, left the fold. Why? He said, because yes, there was fear of heaven. Yes, there was scholarship, there was piety. But there wasn't simcha. There wasn't joy. There wasn't that vitality and vivaciousness. There wasn't that exuberance and exhilaration. He said, if that's what you're giving, that's what the generation needs. The famous quote, desperate times require desperate measures. Our generation, everybody, we all need simcha. We need people to approach us with love and joy, to make us feel included in their lives, to make us feel included in their community, to be uplifted, to be elevated, to be instilled with the joy, with the happiness. The Divrei Chaim, the Sanzer Rebbe, used to tell a story about Rav Shalom Kaminka, the Heliga Kaminka Rebbe. One time there was a man that came to him, and the man said that his wife is so wretched, she's so miserable. He said, please, Rebbe, I'd like you to give a bracha, or rather a curse, that she should die. The Rebbe was appalled. The Rebbe was astonished, totally incredulous. The Rebbe said, I can never harm another Jew. He said, but I can advise you. The Gemara in Shabbos Daf Lamed Beis and Beis says that for the sin of the lack of fulfillment of vows, ba'avoin nidarim, for the sin of people who make pledges, who make commitments and vows, tragically, Rahman al-Islam, their wives die. He says, I encourage you to make a vow for the construction of a magnificent mikveh here in town. Now, he knew that the man he's talking to was a very frugal and stingy man. And the man said, absolutely. All of a sudden, he was very motivated to give charity. He says, and the plan was that he wouldn't fulfill the vow, and then tragically something terrible would happen to his wife. A very, very strange story. Time passes, and his wife is still alive. He rushes to Reb Shalom Kamika, and he says, I don't understand. She's here. She's thriving. What happened? And Reb Shalom said, you know, the Gemara in Bava Metzia Daf Nun Tes says, Heavy Zohir, that a person should be very, very vigilant, very, very careful, b'chvod ishto, to honor his wife. He says, you know, apparently, God doesn't consider this woman to be yours because you haven't treated her with respect and dignity, and therefore she's not dying as a result of your forsaken vow. Why don't you treat her like a wife and be zohir, be careful to respect her, and then everything will happen. The man heard this, he went home, and for the first time ever, he started dignifying. He started cherishing and valuing his wife. Kemayim panim al panim, as a reflection. In turn, she started valuing him. Their relationship, a metamorphosis, transformation. They were blossoming and flourishing. All of a sudden, the woman gets deathly ill. The man, the husband, is mortified and devastated. He runs to the Rebbe and says, Rebbe, do something, do something! She's dying! And the Rebbe said, it's very simple. Just fulfill your vow, build that mikveh. And he built the mikveh. And the Rebbe used to joke, he said, not only was I successful in making shalom bayis, but I also got a new mikveh for the town. What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that the man, the husband, when he started valuing his wife and heeding her attention and caring for her, she no longer felt isolated. She no longer felt estranged. She no longer felt different. You know, so often in life, we don't get along with people. It could be family, in-laws, neighbors, whoever it is. So often, we don't get along because we just haven't made the overture. We haven't made the effort to really connect. And if we just make that little initiation, we reach out a little. They feel dignified, they feel validated, they feel important, they feel included. Then in turn, reciprocity, they make you feel wonderful and special. And that's what we're lacking today. There's too much of a bridge. There's too much of a chasm. There's too much of a gap that divides us from others. There's that lack of unity, that lack of shalom, that lack of peace. And Tisha B'Av comes along, and Tisha B'Av reminds us, got to get your act together. Enough is enough. There's so much tragedy, there's so much suffering. We don't need it. And the cure, the solution, the panacea is so simple. Achdus, unite, love one another, take care of one another. So let me just give you a few concrete steps to share with you. There's somebody in your neighborhood who has been exposed to the light of Torah. Make them feel part of things. Greet them, invite them. Shower them with attention and love. If there's somebody in the family that you think is a little different, may not be on your religious level, invite them over. Spend time with them. Revel in their presence. This brings us together. This unifies. On a communal level, I have a suggestion. Just a suggestion. We have a couple who you don't know, but they were both raised in very secular families, families that were very estranged from Yiddishkeit, from Judaism. And the parents, very hostile towards their growth in Judaism, but against all odds, defying all the opposition and all the hostility. They've blossomed to become true Torah Jews. B'nai Torah. And they're getting married, but they have no support. You'll say, well, I don't know them. But that's not what we're espousing today. We're saying that the solution, the answer is Tish Tisha B'Av, is you don't know them, but they're yours. They're part of you. And therefore, you have a monumental opportunity to help make their wedding, to contribute, to be mishtatev, to partner in this. And in the schus of us reaching out to others with love, dignifying others, validating others, making sure that every person that we encounter, we uplift, and we show our humility. We show how much we care about those that are unfortunate, that are downtrodden, that are dejected, that don't feel part of our community. And we make every person feel like they're Shema Echad. We make every person feel that they are the one and only. In that merit, may we speedily see the Geula, the redemption. The Chasam Sofer says that the difference between the third temple and the previous two temples, the previous two temples, there was a Mikdash L'mayla and there was a Mikdash L'mata. There was a temple above in the heavens, in the firmaments, and there's one on below in ground. He says, but the third, there will be no Shar Shemayim. He says, because we will, through love, we will so saturate the world with love and so imbue and permeate the world with love that we will take the entire Baya Shlishi that's up there and bring it down so that we will have the entire Shekhinah for the first time in the history of the world. The Baya Shlishi will be the entire Shekhinah. There will not be even a vestige or remnant left of the Shekhinah upstairs. And that's what we look forward to. May it happen speedily in our days. Amen. Thank you.
A lot of success.
I was blown away. I was really very excited coming in here and watching all the people learn. It was such a wonderful spirit, such a wonderful energy, and I'm really excited. I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu was really excited as well. I was so impressed with how each one connected with the other. Everyone was so interested in learning. There's so much Shem Shemayim. Whatever I've seen in the past, this is something that just outdoes everything. More and more Siyata Shemayim to bring everyone back into the fold, that everyone should come to the full potential.